Hey everyone, this is Colin Degman here, once again with another video of the Nick Jr. tier list, starting with Billy the Dolphin. And he's trying to say hello to all the viewers that was on YouTube. So, yeah, Billy the Dolphin wishes you all good luck. And we're about to move on right now. So, what we have here is some of the Nick Jr. shows that I've never ever heard of throughout years or so. So, without further ado, let's get started. So, Blue's Clues. Well, it's a clue game show or something about Steve, Joe, Kevin in the UK, and Josh. Well, I think you've never heard about, but Blue's Clues is actually like a show that involves finding clues and finding those thinking caps because they have to know what Blue has something to do with show and tell or with school or with anything else in the entire planet. So, Blue's Clues, I would say it's like 10 out of 10 best show ever. Because, man, I wish I should watch this again while I was on Paramount Plus. So, yeah. Next up is LazyTown. Well, it's like a Sesame Street or a Bunny Town ripoff, but I think that show is like, instead of like over neutral, I'll call this scary looking. Because it has lots of ragdolls in this show, but that's a ripoff of Bunny Town and stuff like that, and it's really scary looking. Next up is Nihao Kai-Lan. Well, I was like neutral over it. I used to watch it, but actually I was gonna put it on neutral. Because that show right here is definitely Chinese, not anything but Spanish culture. Well, we'll get that to Dora in a minute. So, yeah. Little Bear. Never heard about it because it's about a bear who likes to go on adventures, but it's also a ripoff of Disney's movie Brother Bear, which you've never heard of Brother Bear before, but I will do, the Disney movie tier list coming soon and stuff like that. So yeah, off we go then. Franklin. Well, not Franklin, Massachusetts or Benjamin Franklin. It's Franklin the Turtle. You probably know Franklin the Turtle was like right around the corner right here. So, yeah. So, yeah, it's like a turtle who likes to go to school with his friends and, stuff like that. So, I might have to put Franklin on fresh because it's really a freshy show that involves a turtle who likes to go to school and stuff like that. So, yeah. Backyardigans. Well, the one on the left, you might probably see. You see Pablo, Tyrone, and Uniqua on it. So yeah, it's like a show who likes to involve imaginations and wildlife creations. So it's like the same show as Handy Manny, Woolly Poly Oly, and stuff like that. Because it's named by the same company who made Little Bear or some of the Nirvana studio shows. And, yeah. I might have to put this one for entertaining because the songs itself reminds me of, like, one of the memories that I haven't heard of. So it's really entertaining, but because, you know, it's just the TikTok song Into the Thick of It was stuck in my head a lot. Literally a lot. Next up is Bob the Builder, which I meant to say in the previous video, it ripped off Handy Manny, which means it's not that bad at all, but it has like the same or different guts as Thomas and Friends or Rubber Dubbers, but a little bit different than that. So I will give this Savage, because I would say I've watched this show on Paramount Plus, and I made the series on YouTube. So I would say the show is Savage. Savage as good. Like, I could change this to perfect. Savage and good. Corn and Peg. Well, I've never heard of it, but I have to put that one there. Next up is Dino Dan, which means it's about a boy who likes to be in Canada looking for dinos and stuff. And he likes to look for something whenever he's at school or at a dentist's office. So, yeah, Dino Dan is like really another 10 out of 10 best show because it was on Prime Video by the time I looked it up, and it was pretty cool. Next up, the Fresh Beat Band. Well, technically, it's like, here's the bulleted list. The Blues Brothers, Big Time Rush, Drake and Josh, The Imagination Movers, The Wiggles, Doodle Bops, and many more of the artists that I have liked. But actually, it's also entertaining as well, because of the cast itself was actually different than it was back in the days. So, yeah. Next up is Gullah Gullah Island. Well, like I said in the previous video, Out in the Box was actually a ripoff to Gullah Gullah Island, because of the same or different songs, and even they have an electronic puppet frog named Binya Binya, which means it's really old school, and they made its own show called Binya Binya, like they made its own spin-off. So let me just put that one on bad, because this show is really, really bad, and it's really a rip-off of the show that I hate was Out of the Box. Next up is Go Diego Go, which means it's a rip-off of the Wildcrats. So I would say the show is entertaining for kids and adults who likes to learn anything about animals and stuff. Even with the Crab Brothers, who likes to learn anything about animals, but Diego knows everything about animal diversity or culture. Like, whatever it is, it's really hard to tell which scientist has the best discovery of hearing that their animals are in trouble. But the Wildcrats will figure it out, not Diego was. Alright. Next up is Paw Patrol. Well, actually, it's kind of a freshy show. Same goes to Franklin, because, you know, the cast itself were really different. And they made its own movie for the first movie since last year called Paw Patrol the Movie, because they made its own headquarters back in New York City, but they have an old headquarters back in Adventure Bay, just to solve, like, whoever needs help from their buildings and stuff like that. And next up is Jack's Big Music Show. Well, the reason why it was on there is because that show was actually the same company who did Bunnytown, which was Spiffy Pictures. Not like Jim Henson Company when David Rudman decided to play Cookie Monster Baby Bear, but David Rudman and his brother Adam made its own first series before he made Bunnytown. So I would say this is definitely Savage and good, because the cast from Spiffy Pictures are like a little bit different than it was used to be. And next up is Dora the Explorer. Well, technically, it's about when Dora explores something interesting, and she wants to find directions about which way to go. So, when I was growing up, I could be like a highway master. Like, looking both ways before I crossed the street, and many more of that stuff. So, Dora likes to explore with a map or backpack, and she likes to follow the pattern to say which way to go. It's like Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, for example. So, it's like a little bit different. So, I would say it's another best show ever in like history days. So, yeah. Next up we have is Bubble Guppies. Well, technically, let me do some research about who voices the pig from back in the barnyard. The voice actor was actually going to be Tino and Senna. Tino and Senna voiced Mr. Grouper in a later Bubble Guppies series. It was voiced by the back in the barnyard's actor, Pig. And, yeah. I might have to say it's almost always Savage Good. Because the songs itself were a little bit different in the beginning, and it's really not that bad at all. So, yeah. Team Umizoomi. Well, that show is really not that cool, but I'm really not happy about it. Because, you know, it ripped off Little Einsteins, which has the same company as, Curious Pictures, but not the Baby Einstein company, but it's owned by Nickelodeon or Viacom, not Disney. So this show is all about shapes and sizes, or they have to save Umi City by helping people around the globe. So, yeah. Next up is Little Bill. Well, technically, let me just show you the history of the Go Animate version of Little Bill. Yeah, you see here, if I go to images, you can't even tell that Bill Cosby was actually the one who's actually made this show. Because I don't want to have to talk about him because he passed away, or he might have gotten like a fight from his own U.S. Constitution. And look at the Go Animate versions. Like, how can I tell if he gets grounded by his parents whenever he goes to the airport and running away from his class and getting suspended? Well, in the show itself, he didn't do anything bad. He was actually good in the show. But in the Go Animate videos, he was bad as heck. So, I might have to put this show into the bad section. Like, same goes to Gullah Island. And, yeah. Next up is Max and Ruby. Well, this show was another Freshie show. Because Max was repeating the same words to Ruby. And Max likes to say, train. And Ruby says, like, no, Max, you cannot play trains right now. It means that they couldn't cooperate thinking about what Max has to say about it. So, that's called speech-language text, about what Max hadn't already said. So, next up is Mutton Stuff, which means it's really another scary-looking show, because let me give you a history of the Sid and Marty Krofft shows. That was from the past. So, what we have here was a ripoff of Banana Splits, Far Out Space Nuts, Krofft Super Show, Wonderbug, Land of the Lost, HR Puffin Stuff, Lidsville, Sigmund and the Sea Monsters Back There, Electro Woman and Dinah Girl, Bugaloos, Brady Bunch, Pink Lady, Bigfoot and Wild Boy, Dr. Shrinker, DC Foley's, The Lost Saucer, Pryor's Place, and Krofft Superstar Hour. Those shows were really vintage because Sid and Marty Krofft already bought Nick Jr. Like, what the heck did Sid and Marty Krofft do wrong? The cast was actually ugly because one of the 70s shows that they're already old, that they've already bought it since 2015. They rebacked the brand. First, it was Mutton Stuff, who made its own first Sid and Marty Krofft Pictures television. And then Amazon Prime's newest one, Sigmund and the Sea Monsters. Which means it's definitely like a long time ago for its own fortune. So, enough of the chat. Let's just move on to the other ones. Olivia's next. Well, I would say it's another bad show. Because the cast itself were actually ugly. And it's actually a ripoff of Doc McStuffins. Because the Cheerion logo, it's not supposed to be there. And Brown Bag Studios. Brown Bag Studios made Doc McStuffins and stuff like that. Which I've never heard about that show in a while. But Olivia's just a pig who she likes to go on cool adventures and stuff like that. And, yeah. Pretty much the same. Next up, we got Oobi. Well, like I said, well, here's a story about Noel McNeil on Wikipedia. He's really American puppeteer who does Bear in the Big Blue House and, stuff like that. So, as you can probably see in the corner, he does Eureka's Castle, The Puzzle Place, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which came out in by the 80s by New Line Cinema. Also for Blues Room, Follow That Bird, and some other good ones from I have never heard of anything. Like, he ever done the Book of Pooh for Rabbit. Like, it's really not that cool. Man, he does, like, so many shows. He also does, Gullah Gullah Island, Magic School Bus. So many shows that he likes. And he also does Tugs. But for Noel McNeil itself, he's actually a hand puppet. Not the puppet who does Bear or someone from Sesame Street or maybe, like, further, more as well. Like, you could see, I didn't even know that Oobi is supposed to be, like, there herself. So, it's like the show's concept of the training method used by puppeteers with a full puppet. And it's always like 2-minute shorts before its long premieres in the 2000s to 2005. So it's like a long-running show until, you know, Tyler Bunch and Noel McNeil does something else. So, it did air on Noggin, but Noggin was disappeared. So, I would say it's scary looking. Because how can I know human hand puppets will never ever be speaking unless you've got a puppet there? Whoever was puppet building will never ever be opinion of it. God. Next up is Oswald. And it's actually the first ever sad show because that octopus was going in the city for those adventures and stuff like that. And yeah. Oswald also likes to hang out with some friends and helping others with their own skills. So yeah. Next up is Peppa Pig. Well, it's really almost entertaining because every time in the later episodes, she likes to jump over muddy puddles. And every time whenever I hear George crying scenes, I really don't like the George crying scenes. So, I think it was entertaining, but it's almost like humor, like SpongeBob. So, yeah. Next up is Pocoyo, which was another bad show because it's only for, like, babies. It's only for, like, babies and stuff like that. So, yeah. Peter Rabbit. Well, never heard about that show because it's ripped off of a movie that came out in 2016 or 17 or 18 or 19 movie, Peter Rabbit live action. And I love the Peter Rabbit live action better than the series because, you know, Cottontail and the other rabbits, they like to go on cool adventures to explore the meadow and stuff like that. Next up is Maggie and the Ferocious Beast. Well, normally let me give you a close look. This show came out in 2001 by Columbia TriStar Home Entertainment for the first time ever. They sell VHSs and stuff. But in 2007, Treehouse TV bought the DVDs of Maggie and the Ferocious Beast because Sony Pictures Entertainment remaking those DVDs for it's on sale. So I would say it's never heard of it. Because I've never heard about this show in a while. Next up is Miss Spider, which means I have to put that one on the not happy list. Because it's like a ripoff of some of the... It ripped off A Bug's Life, which was actually way better than this. And I really love A Bug's Life. Way better. Shimmer and Shine, this is turned out to be bad. Because it's a girly show that I really don't like, but depending on what it is. So, Noggin. I would say it's 10 out of 10 best show ever, or more like the best channel ever. Because I miss lots of nostalgia premiums and stuff like that. Because Moods and Z taught the viewers how to find signs and stuff like that. Next up is Tickety Talk. Well, never heard of it, but I've watched that show once, but I would say I'm going to be neutral. Because the British series, they've unlocked us all. Like, it's like a British series. Like, they have to go to get a job at BBC Worldwide, not Nick Jr. Next up is another Sesame Street ripoff, Upside Down show, because Sesame Workshop owns the show itself, because that show premieres in 2001 or 2002, whatever I call it. I will probably put it as Savage and Good, because that show was actually a ripoff of Sesame Street, or maybe like some other shows that was actually made by one another. So yeah. Or some of the sitcoms, but not some sitcoms, but differences. They do matter a little bit. Next up is Wally Kazam. Well, that show is fresh, because that troll from the castle speaks up spelling words, and it's a ripoff of Super Y, and many more stuff like that. So yeah, Wonder Pets. I would say that show was on the neutral list, because that show ripped off Willow Einstein's and Super Y, which they're both way better. Willow Einstein's is about how they solve missions, and Wonder Pets is about how they have an animal in trouble, and Super Y is a show how they fix up sentences in books. So, yeah, all of that does make sense, but whoever does need any more help from the team. Next up is Wow Wow Wubsy. Well, again, the show is really scary looking because, you know, Anchor Bay sell those DVDs at a local store because they used to sell Thomas and Friends DVDs, but right now, Anchor Bay bought Wubsy DVDs, not Paramount does. So, yeah, it's about how scientists invent things, like Walden, for example. He likes to invent stuff that's really familiar to the other cast of the show, but yeah. Last one is Yo Gabba Gabba. Well, let me give you a little close-up for the differences. Giving you, like, close-up of mascots. Differences between mascots from different band artists. Let's start off with the Wiggles mascots first. Or let me give you, like, clear look up from one of those. You see, these mascots were a little bit different than this. How do they combine each other? Like, what the hell? God. You see, their mascots were a little bit different then it has different band artists. Like, what the heck? Why aren't they all band artists? Or some children's entertaining shows have different band artists and mascots. Like, what the heck? Like, I believe they made DVDs, some made out of Paramount Pictures Home Entertainment and N-Circle Home Entertainment, because N-Circle Home Entertainment released Live on Stage with the Gabba Gang and Paramount Home Entertainment for the series. So, I would say it's savage, because their songs were a little bit different than the Wiggles versions. I like Rockabye Bear better than Hold Still. And, Fruit Salad is like way better than Yummy in My Tummy. And, Wake Up Jeff is way better than the Sweepy Time song, where the witch sparkles Fufa whenever she daydreams something about it. So, yeah. This is Colin Dykeman saying, signing off.